Mike.
And I'm Angela.
And this is NFGeeks. Okay, so Angela, one thing I've been implementing into NFGeeks is that, and hopefully you will do this too, is that anytime an NF is being interviewed, regardless of their personality type, to do what I call a love episode, where we talk about love and what the NF thinks of love, and it can go in any direction, whatever type of love you want to talk about, heartache or otherwise.
Okay.
And relationships or whatever, because it's a very important NF topic. As
It
you
is.
know.
It is.
So, so this is your love episode. So, all right. So let's just start it off. What is your attitude about love in the moment? What's in the present? Let's start with the present.
In the present.
In the present.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to think. In the present, as far as now at my age,
sure,
that would be as, I think about it two ways, because I always think about what others might say that I should be feeling about love and how I actually feel about love. The way that I actually feel about love is that it's this completely different experience than anything you ever have. And when you experience it, to certain extents, obviously, because there's, I believe there's the certain levels. There's the, kind of passionate to the side where it's, either going to go awry or it's just not going to happen. It's going to just fall off very quickly. And then there's the long-term love where it's, a family member or a best friend or a somebody that you feel like that kindred spirit with, and somebody that you love as another human being. Not so much, intimately. But then there's also the intimate part of love, which is getting married or not getting married, or just being with that person, growing old together, wanting to be together all the time.
All right. How does that relate specifically to you? Because those are sort of general things. So how does those ideas specifically relate to you now?
Well, specifically to me, I have the ultimate idea that I want to have a relationship, get married, have children, have a family, and grow old with that person. I don't believe in divorce, so I hope, I'm hoping that that would never happen to me. Obviously, there's not much you can do to certain circumstances, but...
Okay, but if you don't believe in divorce, wouldn't that mean you'd stay no matter what?
Probably, but that doesn't stop the other person from leaving.
Okay, sure.
That's the way I think about it, is it doesn't stop the other person from going.
No argument there. That's right.
But that... With me personally, I just feel like I want to feel that unconditional connection with somebody, that no matter what they do, I'm always going to be like, I love you. I just would do anything for you. I would jump in front of a bus for you. I would do anything it would take to take care of you. And it also hurts me when I see people who fall out of love, who are just crazy, and that's why I'm talking about like the passionate part, where people are in that honeymoon stage, or they're just uncontrollably, I love you, but they don't actually, I feel like, well, I mean, obviously I don't know what another person's thinking, but I feel like they're not feeling it the way that I would feel it in the way that I think about love. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like how everybody kind of sees it differently, and some people see love as being that I love you and I care for you, but then others would say that it's love like a parent, where it might be a little more conditional to some people. Like I know some people who like it's a very conditional situation, where if you're doing if you're being the way that I want you to be, then I'll love you. But if you're not, and that's sad, because I've had friends growing up whose parents have just forgotten about them because they didn't live their life the way that the parents had seen for them.
Sure.
And I got a lot of love as a child because, of course, I had to have it all the time. But
that doesn't mean you got it. But you certainly wanted it.
But I certainly wanted it. And all through my life, I always wanted it. So in and out of relationships, and always trying to look for the love, but never really getting it completely. And that kind of led to a little bit of disappointment for a while.
Sure. All right, and we'll get to that, because what I want to do is kind of go back in time now. NFs are sort of known for having a lot of love fantasies. Even in childhood, having love fantasies. Can you speak about love fantasies that you have had, or how that relates to you? What kind of fantasies have you had about this going through time, particularly in childhood?
Well, in childhood, I can't say I, like, dressed up or anything. I was a very big tomboy, so.
Sure. Well, they could be just running in your head.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely went with me where I was always thinking as a kid that I was like, oh, one day I'll meet the guy and I'll get married and I'll have kids and I'll be happy and I'll have my little house. And I had, like, a picture in my head of, like, you know, my little white house with the blue shutters and all that stuff, you know, down to, like, the very details of, you know, I wanted to have a dog, I wanted to drive a nice car, I wanted to have a job that I loved, and, you know, just wanted to have the perfect life, as everybody wants, to the way that I wanted it. And as I grew older, it became more that I wanted to be happy in my own mind than to say, I want to focus on school, or I want to do this, I want to, you know, I want to go and I want to have fun. I want to be with my friends. I want to be around people that care about me and leave the other people behind. So as I got older, I feel like I also had to kind of take on that self-love approach too, where I had to kind of realize things about myself. So then when I wanted to grow up, it stayed on the same path where I wanted to grow up and get married and have a house and have kids, but it kind of started drifting farther and farther away as I got older. And that kind of...
From the fantasy?
Yeah. Like, I felt like...
Were there any specific fantasies? Like, anything specific that you can remember?
Can't think of any off the top of my head, but...
Who was the first boy you fell in love with? And how old were you? You don't have to give his full name. You can give his first name.
That's okay. My mom called him Elvis, because he looked like Elvis, but we were, like, probably 12 or 13, and that was, like, you know, I was like, oh, I love you, he's my boyfriend, and, you know, it was, like, that little, you know, when girls are teenagers, they just, you know, fall in love all the time, and that one, it was, like, every guy that I, not necessarily was, like, with, like, dating full-time, but even, like, a guy that, like, as I grew up, I was, like, talking to, or whatever, I always had different, like, growing up, getting old, and getting married to each guy. Like, the guy changed, but nothing else did.
Well, that's interesting. That's a very ENFP experience. I'll share that the first girl I ever really fell in love with was named Sarah. I was about 8. And it was an unrequited love. She never knew.
Oh.
I didn't say.
She didn't know you existed?
No, she knew I existed, but she didn't know how I felt about it. I just kept it to myself.
Oh, okay.
From across the room, you know.
You just stared, loving
right, and honestly, unless she watches NFGeeks, she still doesn't know. To this day. You know. Absolutely, yeah. Isn't that interesting? So, I doubt she watches NFGeeks.
That's okay. Yeah, I doubt she does either.
And another thing I want to talk about, though, because you were sort of alluding this is a very ENFP thing. About the ENFPs,
I'm sure I was.
And that is that, you didn't say it directly, but ENFPs are notorious for falling in love and expressing love quicker than certainly all the other NFs. And maybe quicker than all the other types.
Yeah.
But certainly quicker than the NFs. I think the slowest is the INFJ. You know, maybe 6 months later they'll get it out. But the ENFPs are notorious for sort of doing this and having sort of experiences of love at first sight and things like that. So have you had any experiences that are similar to that?
Yes.
Of course.
Of course.
Such as?
Well, in high school, I had a friend that would come over my house and hang out with me, and nothing ever came of it, but he and I were kind of those people where all of our friends knew that we wanted to be together, but it just never happened. And this one, like, for more than a year, this went on, and it just never happened. So then we moved on with our lives, and he's married now. But that one was kind of like, I felt like an instant connection, like, I want to be with you. That's it. Like, that's it for me. If I could be with you, I'd be all set, you know? And I agree with you that I do. I feel like I almost scared some of them away that way.
Oh.
Yeah, I did. I scared some boys away.
Yeah, that happens with the ENFPs. They do. I've had similar experiences. I know what you're talking about.
Some people can't handle it. That's just the way it is.
They can't handle it.
Yeah,
They think we're full of shit. That's one of the things. Like
or that
ENFPs
we're crazy.
are not. Well, both.
Yeah.
That's not true. I've heard that a lot about ENFPs. Somehow, no, you couldn't possibly love me, and that's not. But it is true.
It's not logical. That's the way they think it is.
Right, but ENFPs, because we know people, I think, this is my theory, because we know people very well, you know, we get them right on the first meeting, then we know really after the first meeting whether we want to love you or not, whether we could love you or not, or, you know, we already know what you're all about very, very quickly. So we can get to, like, make that choice a lot quicker than everybody else because we have great insight into the other person. That's my theory. Do you agree?
I do agree with that one, only because I feel the same way. I feel like I kind of push almost in the attempt to bring someone closer. I end up pushing them away.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's a classic ENFP problem.
Yeah.
Yes, that always happens because we're kind of smothering.
Yeah, a little bit clingy.
Right. You know, so if I had a nickel every time I had to hear that.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, now have you ever had like a direct like love at first sight, like literally love at first sight? Experience, like the second you saw them, you had something.
Once, but absolutely nothing came from it. It's the saddest thing
sure.
ever.
It doesn't mean you get married and have 10 babies. I mean,
no, but it was just
what happened?
The first time I ever went out, like I was out at the mall with some of my friends, and I was kind of like in a group of people. Like we didn't really talk to a lot of people, but I had never really like gone up and talked to a guy before because I was, you know, nervous and I didn't, you know, fear of rejection, all of that. And I saw him and I was just like, oh my God, he's beautiful. I want him. I have to have him. And I went up to him and tried to talk to him. And after talking to him for about 5 minutes, his girlfriend showed up. Sad, heartbreaking. It was terrible. And, you know, then I gave up on that for a little while. And I didn't really talk to boys much after that. But then I got older and then they kind of started coming to me and then I was kind of taking it as I could. But then, like I said, scared a lot of them away. Even though they were the first ones to come forward, I ended up pushing them away inevitably.
Oh, that's wonderful. What a wonderful story that is.
I know, isn't it?
One of the strongest times I felt love at first sight was actually the same Asian woman that I was talking about. I remember very vividly. This was a long time ago, too. This was like in the late 90s, I think.
Wow.
When I first encountered her, I remember walking into a room and turning a corner. Like, as you walked in the room, you couldn't see her because she was, like, left of the door. The door was in like the corner of the room, was in the center of the room, and so it was in the corner of the room. So I went in the door, turned left, and there she was, and it just like blew my mind. Like instantly, my mind was already blown. Like 2 minutes into meeting her, you know. And I mean, it took a little more longer for me to for something to happen, but I remember meeting her and be like, wow, you know, right away, like minutes after meeting her. The funny thing is, when the first time I went on a date with the doctor, I felt very good about her. I wasn't exactly as strong like that, but I felt really good right from the beginning. I was like, yeah, I like her. And she went on the date. She went on this long rant about how love at first sight is crap.
Oh God! Of course she did. She did. Of course she did.
You know, she was, you know, because she was a psychologist and trying to talk about it rationally, whatever. Yeah. She went on this long thing, and it was very funny. You know, it was very funny. Yeah. Not so funny now.
No, not now when you think about it, but
it was funny in the, you know, the moment. You know. All right, so we got a few minutes left. What do you think are some of your, because people, you know, are a little critical of us as ENFPs, what are some of your mistakes or delusions about love, you think? When have you like missed the mark and screwed this up?
Plenty of times. The biggest ones I can think of was I started dating this guy. Well, you know, it started off as it sometimes does with us, that we kind of rush into things. And then I ended up dating him, but he was seeing my friend shortly before all this happened. And I felt bad about it, but then at the same time I was like, nah, I think I'm just going to go for it. So I went. But then, you know, it went back and forth, and it was, you know, a very, like, intimately based relationship.
Sure.
And I think as time went on, I started to see it more as a relationship, and I think he was still seeing it as that original relationship. So it was kind of like you were saying with the girl, where we would see each other, have, like, awesome weekends and stuff, but then not talk. And this went on for months, and then after a while, I was just, forget it. It's just not.
What was the delusion you had?
The delusion I had was that I felt like this was going to turn into something. Constantly thinking, I have to keep trying because it's going to turn into something. Yeah, he will love me eventually.
Right, that's an ENFP thing. If I just work this enough, if I just, you know, I always say it in terms of PlayStation. If I just, you know, left, right, triangle,
right,
you know,
combination.
If I get the right, I'll get the infinite lives, whatever it is.
Yeah.
All right, great. So that's all time we got. So thanks, Angela.